All right, so hello everyone, welcome and thanks for joining me today. Over the next 20 to 30 minutes, we'll be learning about Leap, the browser-based version of the Polaris ILS. So up on the screen now, I have a brief outline of what we'll be covering today. So first I'll go into more detail about what Leap is and what you need to access it. Then we'll actually log into Leap and I'll demonstrate how it works. And finally, we'll discuss some of the ways you can start using Leap in your library right away. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to pop them into either the chat or the questions box. I'll try to keep an eye on it as we go, but I'm also planning to leave a little time at the end for questions. All right, so like I said, Leap is a web browser-based version of the Polaris ILS. It works on most devices, requiring only an internet connection and no additional software. So it allows you to perform many of your day-to-day library activities, like checking out items and registering patrons. The other defining characteristic of Leap is that it's designed to work on mobile devices like your tablet. So this, coupled with the fact that it works on any internet connection, means you can take Polaris anywhere, really, even outside of your library. So when it comes to requirements, it might look like a lot up on the screen now, but they're actually very few. Leap should work on any computer or device so long as it has a modern web browser that supports HTML5. So I have a list of the browser versions you'll need to run Leap up on the screen, but basically, if you've updated your browser in the last couple of years, you're going to be okay. When it comes to tablet compatibility, Windows tablets shouldn't have any problem. Android is fine as long as Google Chrome is updated, but iPads will need iOS 7 or higher to run Leap. So if you have a generation 1 or 2 iPad, sadly you won't be able to use Leap on it. If you're using Leap on a tablet, there are a couple other things you'll want to remember. First, you need to hold your tablet in landscape mode, so this will ensure that the web page displays properly. And second, while technically Leap will work on a smartphone, it wasn't really designed for devices with screens 7 inches or less. So while you can access Leap on your iPhone, for example, it's not really recommended because it won't display properly and you might be missing out on some of the functionality. Leap will work with a variety of barcode scanners. If you're using Leap on a laptop, any USB scanner you have will work. When using a tablet, you can use a Bluetooth scanner or potentially even a wired scanner, provided that you have the adapter to connect it to your device. It can be a little tricky to set up the first time, but it is possible. If you'd like some recommendations on what to use or to get it set up, just contact us and we can provide some assistance with that. Of course, use of the scanner is completely optional. It's not required whatsoever. The only other thing you need to access Leap is a single permission for your Polaris username. It's very simple for us to add. All you need to do is send us the Polaris usernames of the staff who need access to Leap, and we just add that permission. Once you have that single permission, all other permissions carry over to Leap from the desktop client. So, for example, if you don't have permission to modify patron records in the desktop client, you won't be able to do it in Leap either. Okay, so that's all there is for the requirements. I think what we'll do now is just actually open up our browser and get into Leap. So I'm going to use Firefox for the demonstration, but since all of my browsers on this laptop are updated, any of them would work really. So now that I'm in my browser, I'll go up to the address bar, and the address for Leap is leap.trackpack.ab.ca. It's pretty short, pretty easy to remember, but if you wanted to, you could favorite or bookmark this website just like you could with any other website. If you were using your iPad, for example, you could even create a shortcut on your home screen so you could get right into this. So once you're on the site, you just need to enter your Polaris username and password, and these are the same credentials that you use to log into the desktop client. So when you're entering your username, it's important to follow the example here in the box, but with one slight adjustment. So the format you want to follow is Polaris username at YRLS. So you don't want to include the .com like it shows in the example here. It's just your Polaris username at YRLS. So for me, it would look like this. Okay, and then my password is the same password I use for Polaris. So type that in. Hit enter, click sign in. Okay, so the first thing you'll be asked to do before you get into Leap is to choose your branch or your library and your workstation. So for most of you, when you log in, the branch will already be selected with your library. If you're from a library where you have permissions to log into multiple libraries, you can choose which one you want in this drop-down, but most of the time you can just leave it. And the second box is the workstation. So the workstation drop-down lists all the computers in your library that are connected to the YRL network, and which one you pick determines how activity done while you're logged into Leap is recorded in Polaris. So for example, if I select this workstation here, the one that's already selected, that's the computer at my desk. Anything I do in Leap, so any checkouts, any patron registrations, if I go back and look at the history, it's going to show that it was done on this computer. It will just show that workstation name. So knowing that, we recommend that libraries choose one workstation to designate as their Leap workstation, and always choose that one when logging in. It's not crucial. It will work no matter what workstation you pick, but it could be helpful if we need to troubleshoot anything in the future if you're always using the same one for Leap. And once you make these selections, next time you log in on this device, it will remember which ones you picked, so it's a lot faster. You can just click continue. Okay, so now we're logged in, and this is what Leap looks like. And just to reiterate, I haven't had to download or install anything extra on my laptop. Everything is just built in to the web browser. So that means I can access it immediately on any device. Before we get into kind of going over all the core functionality, I just want to look around the main page here and go over some of the things we're seeing. So right at the top, we have our search bar, and this is pretty important to your Leap experience. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes going over it. Now, by default, this search bar will search multiple types of records. So for example, if I type in Martin George, it's showing me that I have patron records that match that, and I also have bib records that match that. So do I mean the patron George Martin, or do I mean the author George R.R. Martin? This also works with barcodes. So whether you have the barcode or you're typing in a patron's name, the title of a book, you can search anything in this basic search bar, and it will normally, you'll be able to find what you're looking for that way. However, if you want to do some more advanced searching and search specific record types, you can also do that by clicking the Find button right here, just to the right of the search bar. So once I click on that, in here I can change all sorts of things to make my search more specific, and it's a lot more like what you're used to in the Find tool in the desktop client. So I can change the record type that I'm searching right here. The star indicates which one is my default search setting. So for me, it's set to patron. So anytime I open up this Find tool, it will first search the patron type, but I can change that. I can also change my default by clicking on the star. I can change the search qualifier, so you'll probably recognize these from the desktop client again. So right now I'm searching by name, but I could change that to barcode if I had the patron's barcode. In here I can also add filters to my search, and I can do that by clicking the filter icon, that one there, or I can click the menu icon and go to search filter right there. So towards the end of the webinar we'll come back to this and I'll show you what those filters look like, but that's basically your advanced find tool. But most of the time you'll be able to find what you're looking for just using the basic search bar here. In the top right we have utilities. So if I click on that, we have holds queue and pick list processing. Again, we'll look at that towards the end of the webinar. Under help, you can click on Leap topics, and what this does is opens up the full Leap manual in a separate tab. So it's actually hundreds of pages long, probably way more information than you ever want to deal with, but if you're having a specific problem, you can look through the different sections of the manual. If you want to learn more about a particular feature, you can find out about that in here. The search bar is pretty handy too. Anytime I've needed to use it, I just type in the search bar what I'm looking for, and I can usually find it right away. So that's the Leap help topics. In the very corner, you'll see your Polaris username and the library you're logged in as. And this is where you can log out when you're done with your Leap session. So just click on that and then click log out. Up in the left corner, we have another menu icon. This one shows all of our active work forms. So, you know, in the desktop client, how you can have multiple work forms open at once in different windows. So you could have an item record open, a patron record, you could have a find tool open, your checkout work form. You could have all those open in different windows. In Leap, you can have multiple work forms open at once, but how they're handled is a little different. So in Leap, only one work form can show on the screen at once in this area. So any others that you have open will be in the background. So this is where you could open up and see your other work forms and switch to them. It's very similar to how apps work on your iPad or your Android tablet. There's only one in the foreground and the rest are hidden in the background. So we don't have anything open right now, so we're not seeing anything at this moment, but we can open this up again in a little bit once we have a couple open and you can see what it looks like. Okay, so now that we're all situated with where everything is, I think we can go into a few examples of how you would accomplish some basic day-to-day tasks in Leap. So let's start with probably the most common task, and that's circulation. So to check in items, you start by clicking the check-in button here. And just like in the desktop client, you have 4 different check-in modes: normal, bulk, in-house, inventory. They all work exactly the same as they do in the desktop client. So when you're ready to check something in, just make sure your cursor is in this box here where it says scan or enter item barcode, and you either type in your barcode or scan it in if you have a scanner connected to your device. So I'll just type in a barcode here. And I could hit enter if I was on a laptop or on a device. I would just click this little arrow here. And now I've checked in this item. So here in this line you can see how the item status changed. In this case, it was already in, so nothing really happened, but if it was being transferred to another library or something else happened to the item status, you would be able to see that there. Now, if you want to check out items instead of checking in, you want to check out something to a patron, it's a little different than what you're used to in the desktop client. So you've probably noticed that there's no checkout button up here. That's because in Leap, checkouts are done from the patron record. So that's pretty important. A lot of people miss it when they first use Leap, but checkouts are all done from the patron record rather than having their own work form. So what you want to do to check out is first find the patron record. So you can either type in or scan the barcode. I could also enter the patron's name if I didn't have their barcode. So hit enter. We'll just wait for that to load up. Okay, there we go. So once you pull up the patron record, you'll notice that it defaults to the checkout tab here. So all you need to do is pull up the patron's record and then start checking out the items. Again, just make sure your cursor is in this box here and scan or type in your item barcode. Okay, so now I've checked out this item. When I'm done, I can just click complete, and if my device is connected to a receipt printer, a receipt will print at that time. Otherwise, the item will just be checked out to the patron and they won't receive their physical receipt. If in their patron record they are set up to receive e-receipts, they will receive it at that time. So I can just click complete, and I've done my checkout, and that closes that patron record work form. So I think that's about it for circulation. It's pretty straightforward. I think the main thing to remember is that checkout happens not with its own work form, but from the patron record. So you always want to start by pulling up the record of the person you want to check out to, and then scanning your items there. Okay, so now let's go over another common task, and that would be updating or modifying a patron registration. So to do that, the first thing we want to do is find our patron. So we can pull up that record again. And once you have the patron record pulled up, you'll notice that besides the checkout tab, all these other tabs are very similar to what you would see in the patron status work form in the desktop client. So I have items out, account, claims, holds. If I go over to more, there's reading history, association notices. So it's pretty much all the same stuff you would see in the patron status work form. So that's great if you want to see what items they have out, pay some fines, check on the status of a hold. But if you want to do something like renew a patron membership, you have to go to the registration view. So to do that, just click on this registration button. And now I see all the normal fields we're used to seeing when we look at patron registration in the desktop client. So they are organized maybe a little differently than they are in the desktop client. Everything is on this one page, so I can scroll down to see everything, or I can use the tabs on the side here just to jump to a particular section. So if I click on notifications, I jump down to the patron's notification settings. If I simply want to renew the patron record, I can click on this little renew button here, and it will pop up a window telling me when the registration expires, and I can set a new expiration date if I want there. Okay, so that's how I would update a patron registration if I needed to change the address or change some notification options. I could do that there. If I want to create a new patron, all I have to do is click this new patron button right up here. So when I open that up, I see the same registration form, it's just blank. And just like in the desktop client, there are certain fields that need to be filled in. Those are all marked with an asterisk. If I try to save the record without filling in all those fields, it just won't allow me to continue. So it's all the same information that we collect in the desktop client. It's just organized slightly differently, but it is quite handy that you can just jump down to the different sections using the tabs here. Okay, so let's click on this menu icon here just so I can show you what the active work forms look like. So we can see right now I have a new registration open, but in the background I have a patron registration work form open, and I have a check-in work form open. So I can switch between any of these just by clicking on them. And if I want, I can just close it off by clicking on that. That's it. So the last thing I want to quickly go over is placing holds. So probably the easiest way to place a hold is to start by searching for the bib record of the item you want to place a hold on. So in this case, I'll just search Game of Thrones. I'll hit enter. And you'll notice, just like the desktop client, depending on what you search, you'll probably get multiple hits. So you'll have to do a little more filtering to find the exact item that the patron wants to place on hold. So let's say in this case the patron wants the 5th season of the Blu-ray, the 5th season of the TV show on Blu-ray. So this would be a good time to use some of my filters. So I'm going to come up here and click on the filter icon, and I will add condition. And let's do type of material, and I want to set this to Blu-ray. Okay, so I'm filtering type of material, only showing Blu-rays. Click apply. And now I filtered my results down from 118 to 10. So they said they wanted the 5th season. That's right here. So I can either double click it if I'm on a laptop, or tap on it to highlight and then go to open. So I'll do that. Okay, so I have the bib record open now for this item. I would probably confirm with the patron this is the one they want. It is, so I'll just go ahead and click place hold. And I search for my patron. So okay, so I find my patron, click open, and I'm brought back to the patron record with a new hold started. So all I would need to do is confirm their pickup location and click place a hold. Another way to place a hold would be to start from the patron record. So I would pull up the patron record, go to holds, click new hold, use the find tool to find the item that I want to place a hold on. But I find just searching for the bib record first is a little easier. So I won't actually place this hold, but that's all there is to it if you want to place a hold in Leap. So that's about all I had to show you for the basic functionality. Are there any questions about anything we've looked at so far? Okay, I'm not seeing anything pop up in the chat box or the questions, so I thought we'd end just by going over a couple ideas of how you can start using Leap in your library right away. Okay, so since Leap works on any internet connection outside of the WireAll network, and it works on mobile devices, its greatest use is probably outside of your library. So think things like community events, for example. So I know many of our libraries will attend events like trade shows, farmers markets, things like that. But instead of just having a booth there where you talk to people about the library and all your great services, what if you could actually sign them up for a card right on the spot? What if you could bring a small selection of materials and actually check something out and put something in their hand right there? Well, with Leap, that's the kind of stuff you can do. Talking to people about the library and your services is always a great thing. It's never bad, but I think it's a lot more powerful if you can physically put something in their hand right there and you don't really give them a choice to walk away and forget everything that you've said. You actually put a card in their hand. I think that increases the chances of them actually using it. So while Wi-Fi can be a bit tricky in these situations, depending on where you are, keep in mind that if you have a data plan, either on your cell phone or on your tablet, you can use it to create a hotspot to give an internet connection to whatever device you're using Leap on. So it doesn't have to be a super fast internet connection. We're not streaming video or anything. You just need to be able to get onto the website. So there are ways to get an internet connection even if you're in an area where the Wi-Fi is non-existent or a little bit sketchy. The other thing you can use Leap for is just to add value to the outreach services that you're already providing. So if your library does homebound services or visits to seniors lodges, for example, you can use Leap to make things easier and more accurate for yourself. So rather than bringing a bunch of books to the seniors lodge, writing down what people take out, and then doing the checkouts when you get back to the library, or whatever system you've devised to make that work, with Leap you can do it right on the spot. So you're reducing the chance of mistakes happening and just improving that service overall. Same thing goes with things like school visits. So you go to a school, you're doing a presentation to a classroom, you're talking about all the great e-resources that we have. With Leap, what if you can just give them a card right on the spot and they can create their Overdrive account, start accessing lynda.com and all our other e-resources on their devices right away with the library card you've just given them. So with Leap, it just gives you so much more flexibility in what you can do outside of the library. So hopefully that gets you thinking about some of the ways Leap can work for you outside of the library, but I also want to stress that it's not strictly for use outside the library. It's also perfectly capable in the library as well. So one of the easiest ways you can start integrating Leap into your day-to-day workflow is to use it when filling holds or pulling unclaimed holds. So if I go back to the Leap interface here quickly and go to Utilities, Pick List Processing, when I click on this, I can see a list of all my pending holds. So that's the ones I need to go find and pull to fill, either for my patrons or patrons at other libraries. And I can also see unclaimed holds, so holds that are just sitting on my shelf that have been there too long and need to move on to the next patron. So instead of printing off these reports in the morning from the desktop client and going to find these items, I can just pull up Leap on my tablet, go out into the shelves, and find these items. It doesn't look like I have anything on my pending list here, but if I switch libraries, maybe we can see something. Okay, so here's a list of pending items. I can go out as I find them, click the little checkbox, and hit located. All that does is gives the item a temporary status in Polaris, so it moves it from my pending list to my located list. So as I go through and find these things, my pending list becomes smaller and smaller, which is helpful if you have a big list that you're working with, but you don't need to use the located status. You can just find all the items, pull them, and then check them in when you get back to your circulation desk or shipping area. I can also click on an item and mark it missing right from Leap if I can't find it. With the unclaimed holds, I can contact these patrons, see if they want to come in and pick them up, or I can just pull them from my shelf, check them in, and send them off to wherever they're going next. So that's an easy way you can start using Leap right after this webinar if you wanted to. Finally, you can simply use Leap as an alternative to the desktop client. So whether you just want to do circulation at a location other than your main circ desk, or you just want to use Leap for practice or for the fun of it, it's perfectly capable replacement for most Polaris functions. So a good way to become more familiar with Leap is just to use it on an average day on your main circ computer. Just instead of doing your checkouts in the desktop client, try doing them in Leap just so you get more comfortable with it. If something comes up that you can't do in Leap, or you can't find out how to do it quickly enough, you can always switch back to the desktop client. So you don't really have anything to lose in that sense. And you never know, like Leap or something that looks similar to it might just be the future of the Polaris ILS. So it might be a good idea to start getting used to it now. So that's all I had planned for you today. Were there any questions? We have a couple minutes. If there are any questions about anything we've covered today. Okay, I don't see anything coming up, and we're just about out of time here. So I think we'll call it the end for today. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope you learned something new about Polaris Leap. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact myself or anyone in client services. So we look forward to hearing all the cool and great things you guys are doing with Leap, and I hope you have a good day. Thanks again.